Welcome back to Brothers in Boots. My name is Mike,
My name is Jeff.
and today we'll be talking about Asian tanneries as the third and final follow-up kind of our world journey of leather and leather companies that commonly make parts that we see in boots that are an option for us to order. Today, when we talk about Asian tanneries, there's a lot of Asian tanneries, especially when we talk about like India, China, a lot of the large mass producers, especially of lower quality leathers. We're really going to focus on high quality leather manufacturers and ones that people actually make boots out of. We're ignoring anything that's under 4 ounces, anything that you'd only see in a handbag, or just stuff that's not commonly seen made in boots. And we're going to focus more on the stuff that a builder, whether they're Indonesian, American, European, would have access to and is likely making either a custom or a ready-to-made wear boot from. Now, in the case of a lot of these, the P&W makers probably don't have any of this stocked. You might occasionally see Shinki Hikaku, which is the first one we'll talk about, is an offering potentially, especially from Viberg or Westco. Both of them have ran it before. But overall, these are more than likely going to be something that's going to have to be figured out with the builders themselves on if they can source and make for you. As far as I'm aware at the current point, I don't think any P&W maker is current, except for Wesco, is accepting any customer provided leathers at the current time. In the past, now fairly far in the past, Nix did that on occasion. Frank's used to if it was a high enough quality hide. Nix hasn't done it in 4 or 5 years now, or maybe 2 or 3 years is more accurate. And then Frank's has recently stopped in the last 8 or 9 months, just due to one, a place to store the leathers, and number two, receiving quite a few lower quality hides. The other thing too, oh, but
I didn't know Wesco did it. And to add to that, bakers used to be able to get whites to do it, but they've gotten the door shut on them.
that's been a while too. I don't think they've been able to get that done for quite a while. I think it's been a year and a half, 2 years. But that was something. Well, I think
I was
Kyle,
going to guess about a year ago.
Kyle
Seems more
can
recent.
still get it done to a certain extent, as long as it's in Kyle's hands. So he recently got a Winter Smoke Rambler done for me, which is leather that he had on hand. If it's in his hands and he can look at it beforehand, he can kind of get it done at times. But I don't know. That's a tough one to call. You might be randomly denied. I don't want to perpetuate that. You reach out to Kyle if that's something you're interested in doing, and double check with him first before you go too far down that path. But overall, Wesco will take higher end stuff. I've sent them Shinky in the last year. I know they'll take Shell Cordovan if you want a Shell Cordovan engineer. Um, don't be shocked at the amount of shell you're gonna have to send. Some of those panels are gonna waste an entire shell, and you'll easily be out, $1,500 to $2,000 in shell to make an engineer out of them. But the door for that's kind of shut at this point, and it's like I said, number of factors. One of the biggest ones, besides low quality hides, being the fact that most people don't realize the majority of the boot cost is labor. Very little of it's leather. So it's not like you're really getting a discount sending your own leather in. You're going to be paying pretty much full price. And on top of pretty much paying full price, you have the expense of the leather too. So, I mean, it's really just for super enthusiasts that are interested in that. In
I've
that.
never heard of anybody getting a discount
Oh, you
for
don't
providing their own.
you don't get discount at all. It's the flat model price. So you just don't get charged like the limited edition leather upcharge. So, but besides that, the rest is all exactly the same. Um, I've done it a number of times, but I don't think it's that common. Some people have done it, maybe once, but can't think of too many I know that have. I guess Art's done it 4 or 5 times, so that's not true. Because he did it with 3 different colors of Merriam, and he's used some of the stuff that I've provided, and he's also done There's another one that he sent. I can't remember. It escapes me now. Doesn't matter. But once again, it's not a very easily offered thing at the moment. So reach out to them first. I know Frank's will do. Generally, they will order something if you can get 3 other people to go in on it, and it's something that they can easily order from a distributor they have a relationship with. But reach out to them for that part. Your mileage may vary. Those policies are ever changing. We're not employees of Frank's, so we just work with them on a fairly regular basis. Like I said, Westco did accept some leather from me recently. Viberg, your SOL there, same pride with Truman. I doubt either of them will accept anything from a customer. They won't even make custom boots anymore. So, but yeah. So with that, let's get started. The number one leather that everyone has probably heard of, and I've got 3 different examples of it here, is Shinki Hikaku. Shinki Hikaku is a tannery that was founded in 1951 in Japan. They do primarily and exclusively horse and horse rump, which is horse rump, horsehide, shell cordovan. On their Instagram, it looks like they are testing some new products, but I don't read Japanese and the translations suck, so we don't get a lot of that over here anyway. But right here, these are one of my 2 Thunderdome pairs of boots. These are Shinki Hikaku natural oiled horsebutt in a Frank's Wilshire with brown cork, red brown cork Dr. Soul's half soles. Obviously, they don't look like that at the bottom. I've walked in them a ton, and they do darken fairly rapidly with wear. But from the side, you can see that they're not really black. They just kind of look like it from the bottom. Shinki is known for its thickness, so this is a battle-assy, waxy kiltie, so don't look so much at that. But if you look here from the side view, you will see that Shinki is known for its thickness. This is a 7.5 ounce hide. I have Shinki in another pair sitting over there in almost 9 ounces. It is a very stiff temper. It is not a TPR finish, but it's a TPR-like finish. It is shiny, but it's not like the Merriam shiny that you get from their TPR finish or that you see with Chloe or Galudi either. It's definitely a 9.
Not for the faint of heart.
No, it's definitely a 9 out of 10 on the temper scale. Getting it to form to your ankles is a challenge. You will have gaps. It'll feel almost slightly spacious in the beginning until the leather gets a couple rolls in it, because it does tend to roll more than it creases. As you can see, there are some creases, but it's definitely much more likely to roll and produce lumps than it is to crease like traditional leather. They just kind of leaning into the fact that there is shell cordovan in different parts of the hide. They are tough to break in, especially if you are getting them made with a maker who makes the tongue out of Shinki. Shinki tongue is extremely stiff and takes forever to break in. Luckily, Frank's does use a different style tongue, so that's not as big of a problem. But I mean, its stuff it's tough to bend. It's thick. It has a very put it towards the wrong thing. It has a very hard sound to it. Like this has 2,000 hours on it now, probably. I mean, I've been wearing it since October when the Thunderdome started. So, I mean, it might have a little more than 2,000 hours at this point. And it's still pretty stiff. Like, it still even squeaks a little bit when it moves. As you can see, I can't actually bend the shaft left or right still. So, usually on a normal boot, I wish I had a more broken one in sitting here. So this is another brand we'll be talking about later, but on a more broken in boot, you can see you can usually do this to it pretty easily after it's been broken in fairly well. It's a normal thing. Shinki, good luck. I still can barely get this to bend. It still doesn't even want to bend over on itself. Like, that's the stiffness.
Crazy stiff.
Yeah, this is like, if you think Saito work leather's hardcore, this is double that and then some. There's just a reality to Shinki that is not for the faint of heart. It's very much an enthusiast leather. It does, patinate extremely well. It's got a very good feel on foot. It does get buttery soft where it needs to. As you can see, I'm not pushing very hard to get it to move. Where it needs to flex, it will eventually flex and become very buttery soft. But where it is not flexing, or layers are doubled up in multiple places, it's not going to bend. Not effectively at all. Here is a Another pair of Shinki. This is a Tahura Dalium. They're mock toe, and it is a true mock toe. This is in blue Shinki horse rump. Same stuff. This has a little bit more bend to it, but it's still quite stiff. This does have a Shinki tongue, and as you can see, it is a very thick Shinki tongue. This thing was a monster to break in. It's still, at this point, I wouldn't even consider it completely broken in. You can see the grooves that have formed in it that are very kind of shell cordovan-like, and the tongue is softer than it was initially. A Shinki is a struck-through leather in all colors except for green. Not sure why, but I'll show that off here in a second. Green's the only non-struck-through color. But it is thick stuff. It is overall quite thick. It is stiff. It is an enthusiast leather. It's really not for the faint of heart, and it's expensive. The Indonesians, I think if you were to try to order this boot right now, it'd be somewhere between $540 and $600, and you're almost exclusively paying for the leather. If you were to go buy the blue that Rocky Mountain has left, but they don't have much of the Shinki horse rump they got in, right now enough to get a pair of boots made out of it would cost you between $400 and $500. So this stuff is definitely
at
not
least
cheap.
effectively.
Yes.
At least effectively, because they're paying less for it over there.
Yep, correct. And that's always going to be a thing when it comes to a lot of these imported leathers, is in their home countries they are going to be cheaper. Now, if you're familiar with Shinki horsehide, I should have probably went and grabbed that. So I have a jacket in Shinki horsehide. Now it's much thinner. The Shinki horse and Shinki pony hides are around 3 to 4 ounces. So they're much thinner. Not very suitable for boot making, but Shinki pony jacket, Shinki horsehide and Shinki pony, which from what I can find, they label them based on the age of the horse when it died, not so much like how big or small it is considered kind of the top tier for leather jackets. The BiB Brothers, which is one of the probably one of the 2 most famous North American jacket makers, almost exclusively use it. The other one, A2, which makes military replica jackets, obviously doesn't use it because they're making military replica jackets. And then I don't know if Arrow uses it anymore. They kind of use more Chrome XL these days, horsehide Chrome XL, but Arrow did use it at one point in time, and then Field Leathers was known for the use of Shinki. I think they only keep black in stock now. The brown just got too difficult to source. They have brought in blue and green on occasion, but it's not a normal offering for them. But the Shinki horsehide is considered kind of like the ultimate jacket material. So some of the most expensive and nicest jackets you'll see will be made of Shinki. And then their third product, which I consider them to be kind of number 2 in the world at, is their shell cordovan. This is emerald green Shinki shell cordovan. As you can tell by the rolls that it has a very unique feel to it. It has a very unique finish as well. It's a shiny finish, but it's very matte, whereas most shell cordovan looks like what I am wearing today, which this is Horween bourbon shell cordovan, which is very shiny, very it's stiff, but it's really smooth and glass-like feel to the touch. Whereas Shinki shell has a slightly grittierness to it, and it shows in its more matte finish. Just like any other shell, it's only 4.5 ounces, so it is definitely on the thin side, even though shell is very durable. Like I said, this is one of the few that's not struck through. For whatever reason, the Shinki green colors are not struck through. I don't know if that has something to do with the brown undertones or the fact that they do black with green layered over it, because a very light black dye over green has a like marbled black shell. If you've ever seen it, has a very green look to it. But it is one of their few colors that is not struck through. Almost everything else they do is completely struck through, but this emerald in both the horse rump and the shell, for whatever reason, is not entirely. I'm just guessing on that. I'm not entirely sure what the reason is, but compared to Horween shell, this is quite a bit softer and more malleable. Softer is not the right word. It's a looser temper. Like it's still got a stiffness to it, but it's nothing like Horween shell cordovan, which is up there with like horse rump stiffness. It's not that the Horween's any thicker, but it is definitely lower on the temper scale. It's very fine shell cordovan. Now it's about half, maybe not half, but like 60% the price of Horween shell, so it is quite a bit cheaper. But that's to be expected, you know. Horween shell is very, very expensive. Like, now this is an engineer, so obviously this took a ton of panels and has a lot of really big panels. But I think I paid $1,200 for these. To get a regular 6-inch boot made in Horween shell cordovan from Indonesia, you're looking at $1,200 to $1,300. This will probably run someone these days close to $1,500 for this. If you wanted it in Horween, it's going to be close to $2,000. And Viberg just ran like a $2,200 pair of shell cordovan engineers recently in the last year or so. But definitely not my first choice for engineer. This has worked out pretty well. I like this last. It's a very high arch, kind of Western looking last. A little narrower of a toe, so it's got kind of a packer look to it. But I wouldn't do another engineer in shell. It definitely wouldn't be my first choice. But they do make a very good shell. They do all their products in the same colors. They have the same 12 colors for their products. It's a pretty good balance. There's greens, blues, reds, a couple different browns. In a super natural. Their natural color is like almost it's not like bone white in color that some people do with their like crust cordovan, but it is very, very natural. Most naturals are kind of slightly yellow in color or a very light tan. The Shinki naturals are extremely light. As you can see,
Who's the builder on that one again?
this one is Benzene, who's also known by Bristleback now. So
That's
as
right.
you can see, it's got the Benzene logo, but this was before they rebranded. And keep in mind, this hasn't been conditioned, but this is natural after 2,000 hours of wear, which it obviously has some yellowing to it that you're not going to have initially. But most naturals look more like this color here in the beginning. They don't quite come out this natural in color, or this lack of pigment in color, I should really say. But overall, Shinki makes a great product. It's just an absolute pain in the ass to source. This stuff is like impossible to do like a run of 200 usable square feet for like a collab or something. Getting that amount of horse rump is going to take... I think for what Rocky Mountain ran, which was, I think, around 600 square feet of horse rump, somewhere around that mark, it took 26 months for them to get it. So it's definitely a long wait, definitely a niche product. As I said, it's not for the faint of heart. It's not, while I love this leather and it's one of my favorites, I would not recommend people go out and jump straight for Shinki. It comes with a ton of cons. It is stiff. It is a bear to break in, especially if the tongue's made out of it. It's not one of the products I would jump head first in if you're not a leather enthusiast. I think there are a ton of better horse options at that point. One of them being Horween's double horse front and Horween's Chrome XL, or Horsehide Chrome XL. I think those are much more forgiving options compared to Shinki. Shinki's finish, like I said, it's not TPR, but it is a bit shiny in nature. But it is a unique product. People covet it for kind of the shrunken nature of it that kind of puts scales on it. So if you look at the side of this one, you can kind of see it almost looks slightly like turtle skin where you see the scales in it. And every now and then you'll see a pair.
Shinki's got a better look.
Yes.
A lot of people refer to it as a honeycomb pattern.
Yep.
But it definitely has a character to it that you don't get out of any of the other tanneries doing the horse.
Except for maybe Chloe. We'll see. I'm still waiting on those. Chloe's Feng, that new one that I showed you in those like 7 colors, it has a very Shinki-like look to it. But we'll see if that stays in after it's lasted. I don't know. I don't have a pair in that yet. But yeah, but short of that, like you're not going to see it out of Merriam, which is probably the horse rump everyone's most familiar with at this point. But they do make a great product. They are exclusively focused on horse. And I would say they're definitely one of the more coveted leathers in terms of rarity. It is definitely not an easy leather to come by. You're definitely going to pay a premium for it. But overall, if you're down for the challenge, I do think you'll ultimately be happy with it. And then
Tochigi?
I'm going to skip Tochigi and do Letter Ogawa first, because Letter Ogawa is a shell cordovan only company. I don't have any of their products, but they are basically the main rival when it comes to cordovan in Japan for Shinki. The uniqueness about them is all of their shell is not struck through. It's all T-core surface dyed. And somehow they do it without it bleeding through to the other side. The back sides of their hides always look pristine. So whatever they do in the dyeing process, they've figured out a way to not have the color bleed through to the backside, which is unique. That's not a particularly easy thing to pull off. That's one of the reasons most shell cordovan is struck through. Very rarely is it just done to the surface layer. Letter Ogawa is mostly used in wallets. Now, you can order enough of it to get boots made out of it. I know Brian, the bootmaker, has made a pair of red Letter Ogawa. I think they were underdogs, but they might have been townsmen. I can't remember. But he has made a pair out of Letter Ogawa. It's shell cordovan. It's not that different from the likes of Horween or Shinki. It runs a very similar price to Shinki. It's definitely up there in quality. Now, I have not had Chloe shell or Miriam shell to compare them, but I would definitely say I have felt and seen Letter Ogawa wallets. I would definitely rate them Horween, Shinki, Ogawa in that order. And lots of people make wallets from them, especially with Battle ASIAN Minerva and Pueblo, like dividers, internal panels, whatever they're called, the actual internal pieces of them. Super duper common for those to be used with Letter Ogawa shell. Letter Ogawa shell comes in a ton of colors, and they make a very quality product. I mean, if it was easy to source, someone could make a pair of boots out of it. Like I said, I know Brian the bootmaker has. I haven't seen anybody else yet, though. And it's kind of difficult when you have one of the best shell makers in the world in your country. What do you have to gain by bringing somebody else's shell in? If you're a reputable enough maker to even want to run shell in the first place, because shell is harder to work with, super easy to stain, and comes with some other downsides too. You got to be very careful with it. You don't want to crack the shell. It's very tough to use the standard machines on, because while the shell will survive being cracked, like obviously you don't want to send somebody boots that have a crack in the shell, right? It's never going to look good again. You can try to fix it, but it'll never have a matching surface finish to the rest of the boot unless you strip the rest of it down. It's kind of like painting a car, right? Like whenever you touch up a single spot on the paint, you're just acknowledging the fact that you're not seeing primer or bare metal, and understanding that that spot will always be there until the entire car gets repainted or blended. Well, you could probably attempt to blend it. I don't know if you'd ever get it back as the same. So most people tend to just scrap them and make another pair once they've cracked the crust on it. And then that leads into Tochigi. Tochigi is Japan's premier veg tan tannery. They do mostly bovine, so mostly cow, and it's a completely veg tan process. Their coloring system is unique and a mystery. It's all numbered. They have a couple different lines, like the oiled Vegeta line, the jeans line, the earth line. But all their colors are going to be very earth tone in nature. Lots of naturals, tans, browns, oranges. Tochigi is used a fair bit in jackets. I've seen a number of Tochigi jackets. Tochigi's used in bags. I've only seen 2 pairs of Tochigi boots. Indonesia might make more, because I do know some of the Indonesian makers stock Tochigi leather for boots, but it is up there in price. For cow leather, it is quite expensive. The hides are usually between $350 and $450 a side. I think Rocky Mountain right now has wasabi sides at $300, but that's in a single color. They also use a different measuring system in terms of how you measure the size of the hide, and so instead of a standard square footage or square meter system, they use the similar system to what you use in shell cordovan, which is DS for Americans, DM for anybody that's not American, and that's just how you measure the size and the shape of the actual hide itself. Like I said, primarily used in shell cordovan, but Tochigi uses it for their entire sides, which is, nothing wrong with that. Just slightly different. People just need to know what the conversion rate for it is. And usually a reputable distributor will give you that conversion rate as a number that's there. A DS is 0.11 of a square foot, essentially. So 10 DS is a square foot, 30 DS is 3 square feet, so on and so forth. DM is a very similar setup, except obviously that number's not quite as big. But they do make a great product. Tochigi's on the stiffer side. It's not Shinki levels of stiff, but it's definitely getting close to Workside L, maybe slightly more than Workside L levels of stiff. So it's up there in the temper scale. Their colors are known for not bleeding or rubbing off, which is probably why the earth tone pigments are a little bit more restricted in color range, because their colors don't tend to bleed off near as badly as some of the more, I don't want to say not natural, because obviously pigments are made from natural resources, but like non-occurring colors, right? Like purples, blood reds, blues, like stuff that you wouldn't see. It looks like flower petals more so than like what the color of somebody's skin would be. I think that just leaves Arifan Suns as the last of the Asian tanneries. Arifan Suns is located in India. They primarily work in water buffalo. Here is a pair of Arifan Suns in antique hand-waxed red. The camera does show this as a little bit more of a blood red, but it is not quite this blood red in person. It's definitely a red that looks like a very diluted black paintbrush has been ran over. Kind of what you're seeing a little bit here in this. It is a hand wax, so obviously as the wax builds up and pulls, you do get some really light areas. Like this almost has a little bit of an orange look in real life, even though it does look a little bit more red on camera. If you look at the stitches are a true red. So that should kind of tell you the difference in color. This stuff is on the stiffer side, even though it is water buffalo. It is nothing like bison. There is no ingrained characters. There is no like shrunkiness to it. It's quite a bit stiffer. It takes a little bit more to break in. It does not want to flex near as much. Both Knob and Art have some of this. So Knob got it in a antique brown color. They did a pair of Rikers in, and then Art did a boot very similar to this one. And if you talk to either of them, both of them will tell you the same thing. This stuff is pretty stiff. It is a little bit of a rougher break-in, especially in the upper shaft area. It tends to not want, like Shinki, it tends to not really want to break in very well in that area. In the lower, it's not quite as bad. Does have a very unique look. It gets kind of like this wavy look as it's stretched. As you can kind of see, it's kind of, especially right here in the toe, like there's actual waves I can feel with my fingers. So it is a stiffer leather. It's decent quality. I would order it again. The only downside to it is Arifan Suns is mostly done in thinner thicknesses. I think only the antique brown and this red are done in a 6 to 6.5 ounce. Most of the rest of the stuff is 4 to 5 or 3 to 4. But they do it in tons of fantastical colors. Blues, greens, turquoise, aquas, purples, reds, like forest greens, olive greens. There's lots of beautiful shades. And they do what they call a chomp glaze finish, which is kind of horse rumpy. And then they also do this hand wax finish across all their stuff, or they call their antique finish. It is, like I said, very interesting stuff. It's on the stiffer side. It is not 100% a struck through leather. As you can see here, there is a non-natural core. It doesn't look like it as much on camera, but there is a slight non-natural core in there. There's a little layer, so it looks like it's definitely finished on both sides. Can't quite seem to get it. There you can kind of see it there a little bit, but it's definitely finished on both sides. But it does have a very brown natural core. This is a combination tan, so it's just like Chrome XL. It is starts out as a chrome tan and is re-veg tanned. I think it's like 25% chrome tan, 75% veg tan, if I remember right from when I talked to the guy at OA Leather Supply. It's not particularly expensive. It's, I think they're right around Seidel prices in terms of sides. And the sides are pretty big too. They come in around 23 to 26 square feet, so you get pretty good sized sides. I
Really, really quite amazing that the the difference that you have in different buffalo. I mean, Asian buffalo, which is what you're looking
Yep.
at, and American buffalo, which we call bison. And they're both buffaloes, but very, very, very different. And it's one of the reasons why, if you do like the character that bison has, that you need to be somewhat vigilant in your mind as to which one that you're talking about and to make sure that you're getting what you think that you're getting. Because, some people think of, buffalo and they're like, oh, okay, it's going to look like bison. And it's always, once I learned that difference, it kind of really surprised me that the Buffalo Bills, um, anyway, that's a sidetrack. But at any rate, it is it's good to notice the difference between the two different kinds of buffalo, and how distinct the difference is. They're also very different in size.
Yep. You would never, like, if you put this on one foot and a bison boot on the other, like a law tanning or a Seidel bison, you would never know that they were both buffalo. They feel leagues different. They're not even close. The foot feel on this reminds me of something closer to horse than buffalo, but it is water buffalo. Um, and like I said, this is a leather that maybe not in this specific color, because I don't know if this color would sell particularly well. But this would be something that I think would be a good offering. I think this is a very good uh, middle of the ground boot. A boot you can work in and a boot you can do casually. The stiffer temper and kind of the very thick, hard wax outer layer makes this boot incredibly dent resistant. Like, these have a number of hours on them. I think I'm around 1,500 hours on these, and these have been to the data center. And they don't have the beat up toes that all, like, Jeff's seen it and he knows what I'm talking about. But most of my boots that have been to the data center, the toes get completely like dented in, scratched, scraped, and it's just because everything in the data center is sharp and nobody spends money to round over edges. There's no reason to. And these actually have taken a ton of beating. Like, you can see some kind of scrapes. Like, you can see right here, I got a decent little scrape in the toe cap, but like no denting or anything. For whatever reason, this leather's dense enough it doesn't dent at all. So, like, unlike Wicket and Craig and Horween Chrome XL and Horween Dublin, who take dents and scratches very easily, this doesn't really much at all, actually. So that's another very unique thing. So if you're in a climate where, or you work in an environment where you get lots of dents and dings in your boots that you find unsightly, this is a great option. Art likes working in these and doing metalwork in these because they don't take scratches or dents at all from his metalworking, which all of his other boots do. So, but it is a very unique leather. Like I said, it's not super duper expensive. It's around Seidel prices. I think the sides of these through OA you can usually get around 130. And I do think there's a lot of the side that's not as usable, because that 23 square foot side that I sent to Frank's did only make 2 pairs of boots, and there wasn't enough for a third. There's only enough for a pair of uppers. So that yield does suck a little bit, because I would think that at 23 square feet you'd be able to get more than 2 pairs of boots. Now Art did get an 8-inch boot, but I would still think it would make more than 2 pairs of boots. So tells me there might be parts of the hide that aren't quite as usable as others. But to be fair, I also don't know what the yield on a regular like law tanning bison side is either.
Shrunken more, and I think the no, I don't know. That one's not shrunken.
No, not at all.
But the bison that we typically talk about with law is shrunken.
I think Horween's
And
Montana bison.
I also don't know
shrunken.
if Arifan Suns stretches that. Typical cow, maybe all cow, it's stretched, whereas buffalo typically is not stretched as much. But maybe Asian buffalo, water buffalo, gets stretched more like cow.
I don't think so. It doesn't feel like it. It doesn't have that kind of like loose grain texture that's a result of that stretching. So I don't think it is. Now once again, maybe I just got good cuts from that hide, and I can't see it in what I have. It's possible. I mean, I only unrolled the hide once before I mailed it to him. So the hide is shaped different than you would expect. It definitely doesn't have a traditional shape. A lot of the leather is front loaded towards the front instead of closer to the rear, like a traditional side would be. Which I guess, given the shape that a buffalo, has more body mass leaning forward, I guess that makes sense. But once again, I've never seen a law tanning side in front of me to know what their sides look like, so that might just be normal. But yeah, like I said, I would order again, and I had the website open a little bit ago. I mean, they have tons of really pretty colors in this stuff. They do like 16 or 17 colors. It's like Battle Lassie levels of color count. In a couple different finishes too. Definitely would make a great backpack, handbag, travel case. A lot of the little small leatherworking goods people make stuff out of. That perfect leather for that. It would definitely do a good job there. And it's a pretty good boot too. Like I said, this is something I would like to see Frank's carry, but like I said, they only do the two colors in a standard thickness that they would use, which is that 6 to 6.5 ounces. So, and last but not least, when it comes to the Asian tanneries, now once again, as I said in the beginning, there's lots of Asian tanneries. I'm talking about the ones that we've actually seen boots made out of. Would be what the Indonesians call their local Indonesian leather. Now, I have looked a ton to try to actually figure out what local Indonesian tanneries there are, and the information is not easy to discern on the internet. I just wonder if those guys have no need for an internet presence, and that would be the case. I mean, it's super uncommon for Indonesian makers to even have websites to order boots from. So, from that perspective, it's not very shocking. They also might, just only buy directly from distributors, or only sell to distributors, so there's no need to have a website. It's all 100% possible. I don't know. But what you will find from the Indonesian makers is they have usually a lot of color options. They don't tend to last as long. They go brown quickly, and they're quite a bit cheaper. If I were to take this boot, for example, now this one's a couple years old. I want to say I paid $480 for these in Shinki. If you were to order them now, I bet they're going to be somewhere between $550 and $600. You could get the same boot made in a local Indonesian leather probably for $250. It's quite a bit cheaper. I've even seen some of the brands like Fortis sell some of their Chelsea models in local Indonesian leathers as low as $220, but if you wanted like Battle Lassie, they're like $480. So it seems to be quite a bit. Now, once again, a lot of that is currency exchange, importing, blah, blah, blah. So getting out of the minutia of that, obviously you're saving a ton there. But it is quite a bit cheaper. I haven't seen anyone that's claimed that their Indonesian leather is better in any way, shape, or form. Never even seen anybody start to make that claim. So it definitely is a budget option. It's just something I wanted to call out because if you look through any Indonesian makers' Instagram, WhatsApp, which are the primary sources on how you'd order for them, you're going to find that they do a decent bit of Indonesian leather, and it is quite a bit cheaper. But they also, almost all of them offer a Horween option. A lot of them have Wicket and Craig now. They all have CF Stead. You see a lot of Shinki. Before a couple years ago, that was the only way really to get Shinki leather boots would be from Indonesian makers. You'll see some Tochigi. Battle Lassie's become very popular over there. Consaria Walpers become super popular over there. And then obviously they've been bringing in more. It was mostly Willys from the Philippines bringing in Seidel, but you're seeing almost all of them bring in like Wicket and Craig colors now, to go with the Horween colors. So, but that covers the majority of the Asian tanneries that would be used towards something like boots. Some of these guys, like your Shinkis, your Tochigis, your Ogawa Lidars, they're fairly known in the industry, if not somewhat legendary. Arifan Suns is kind of like one of those unique ones that we just found a couple years ago. I don't know how Knob found it, but Knob is the first one to send a hide in, and as far as I'm aware, I've never seen anyone else make a boot out of Arifan Suns besides Frank's, and it's Knob's boots, my boots here, and Kodiak Strong's boots, Art's boots. So, and so far it's been a success. Knob took his to the Thunderdome. It looked great. These, like I said, as you can see, it's a stiffer leather because my ankle bone really shows on it. I mean, these have worked really good. They're great data center boots. They've worked out great for me. They even have Ricado marbled lava shell cordovan kilties in it because I'm crazy like that. But yeah.
Knob actually won with those.
Yeah, I think it was.
I remember what he won.
I think it was like sixth place. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what the prize for that is, but I'm sure it was something decent. Because I think you get a pretty decent.
You got a pair of Nick's tankers out of that.
That sounds right. I do remember he did get a pair of tankers made. So. But yeah, like I said, it's definitely a underrated tannery. I can understand why people would be hesitant for an Indian tannery because lots of really cheap, nasty chrome tan from like unmarked brands in the mall come from India. You know, India's the chrome tanning capital of the world. But yeah, I mean, Arifan Suns makes a great product, and all their stuff is hand finished too. So it's got a very good blend to almost every hide I've seen. But I'd like to thank everybody for watching. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe if you like this comment. Any questions down below, please ask. One thing I will say when it comes to this particular one, while we'll try our best to answer the questions, a lot of this information is very difficult to come by. When it comes to sourcing, trying to find stuff, maybe necessarily answering questions, most of these tanneries do not have people that speak English. So they use someone as a middleman distributor most of the time. Specifically Tochigi, Ogawa Letter Ogawa, and Shinki do not sell directly to anybody. You have to buy it through a distributor. So when it comes to Shinki specifically, John Lofgren actually has an Instagram account that is him, the guy John Lofgren. He's usually pretty open to questions. I know he answered Michelle's questions when she was looking for a Shinki source. So Shinki questions, hit the guy up on Instagram and see if he answers you back. Chances are I probably will.
Thanks, guys. I don't have anything else to add. We stayed under an hour, but we covered all the Asian tanneries.
All the ones we see boots out of, yeah.
There's just not a lot of them that are quality, that are able to do boots, that do leather appropriate for boots.
Yep, most of them just make stuff too thin. There's a ton of Japanese tanneries, but like I said, they really are like handbag style stuff, things 4 ounces or less, which just isn't a boot material. Unless it's something unique or something like uniquely strong like kangaroo or ostrich or something around those lines. But this is, cow and horse we're talking about here, which is just a little too thin for boots. Anyway, have a great evening. Thanks you guys for watching.
Take care. Sláinte.